Hey guys, today's video we are going to show you how to propagate. So, typical day on the farm. We're getting ready to propagate and Paul disappears. So he's out playing with his horses. Just another day. Alright, let's go cut some of the flowers off these plants. But keep in mind, every farmer and every farm has their own way of doing it. So there's no perfect way on how to do any of the propagating that we're going to do today. We found this is what works for us. When you're propagating lavender, you want to start with the new growth. You don't want to use the woody old growth because that's going to be harder for it to take root. So you come into a plant, you can kind of see the old growth and the new growth. There's some old growth down here, and then all this is the new growth. So you just take some cuttings, again, it's not a science. There's not a perfect way to do it. There is a wrong way, but it's not that hard.
First thing you want to do when you go out to propagate your lavender is get your materials ready. You need little nursery pots, some potting mix, and there's a ton of research online about what potting mix you should use. Today we're just using regular moisture control potting mix. I really like using a seed starting mix for this because it retains the moisture really well. But if you're monitoring your propagated starts, it's not really a huge deal. At least we haven't found that it's a big deal. We've even used dirt from the ground. So yeah, so get your nursery pots. We have these trays that are for larger projects because we propagate in large quantities. So I think this one has 50 little plugs. That has 35 little plugs. You can do, these were little propagated. This is probably more standard size that you would have just for at-home gardening. Lots of weeds. But these are also a really nice size. These are just like little 1.5-inch nursery pots. But honestly, you could pretty much use anything as long as it has drainage and you can keep the moisture inside. So rooting hormone, we use Root Boost. There's all kinds of different things that you can use. Some people I've heard use honey. What was something else that you said?
Gel.
There's like a root gel hormone. You could probably even get away with not using anything at all. They propagate pretty easily, but we don't like to take our chances, and we've had really good luck with this. So Root Boost it is. Also, flathead screwdriver. This is just for poking a little hole in the dirt so that once you get your propagated plant ready, you can just pop it in there and push it. So once you've gone out and got your lavender and you've got all your materials ready to go, you're gonna put soil in your little nursery pots, just kind of loose. You're gonna take your screwdriver, make a little hole. It does help if your soil is a little bit moist because it's easier to work with. It holds the shape a little bit better. Then you're gonna take your lavender cutting and you're gonna pull off the bottom couple of leaves. So these little places where the leaves come out, I think they might be called nodules. That's where the roots are gonna grow once you dip this in the rooting hormone and then stick it in the dirt. So depending on how big your cutting is, you may take even a couple more, but just dip it in about up to there. And then when you stick it in the dirt, you don't want to rub all the hormone off of the plant. So try to stick it in there without bumping the sides too much. And then just use your fingers to press it in. And it doesn't need to be super compact like you would if you were planting in the ground. And that's it. So one last thing before we wrap up this propagating video, watering is huge. So what we do, if we're using nursery pots like these, and you're just doing this at home, you can use a bucket, a bin, anything, you know, plastic drawer. I've even used the sliding drawers from the inside of an old refrigerator. But you just want to have something that you can set them in and put water in there and then leave them sitting in water for a while so that the soil is really saturated, and then discard the extra water after a bit so that they stay kind of like if you took a sponge and you moistened it and then you wrung it out and it stayed moist like that. That's kind of the texture that you want to maintain in here. Also, depending on what time of year you're doing this, we do ours in a greenhouse because it maintains the humidity and the moisture in the air, which is key. And the temperature, it needs a little bit of heat. So I've used like a little greenhouse with plastic. You can even wrap this in like a plastic clear, sort of clear garbage bag, or any kind of
Painter's plastic
or something like that, and just create like a little dome over the top of your plants inside there.
Hold on. One thing with water and lavender, lavender doesn't like being wet, but when you're propagating, it can be because it's working on making its roots. So that's probably in the first 2 to 3 weeks. If that long you want to keep it wet, then you want to slowly back it off and make sure it's just damp, not wet.
Yeah. And these trays, if you're doing, you know, large quantities of propagated lavender like we do, they sell these handy dandy trays at the garden store, which are pretty cool. So you can just drop your flat of plug trays inside of it. And you can get these for like $2 at the hardware store. And then you could even set your nursery pots just miscellaneous. That's how I did all my veggies this year and some of my cuttings from other plants around the yard. So I think that covers it.
That's propagating. It's pretty easy. Again, keep in mind, everybody does it different, and this is what we found works best for our farm.
Yep.
So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'll get to answering them. Thank you.
Peace. Tape me catching her?